beneath the deepest stratum of the Veral Valley, where eternal darkness hung thick like black oil and bone-chilling cold had reigned for a millennium. The holy light prison seal cast by Grand Commander Ebert was slowly fracturing. The colossal chains of radiant light that once pinned Sanji's limbs were now corroding beneath surging waves of black ichor and boiling deathly miasma. Sanji lay convulsing violently upon the cracked stone dais, his bare chest heaving in erratic, bestial spasms. The ancient archdemon heart of NIC, having completely consumed Robi's essence, pounded in frenzied, erratic rhythms, producing deafening thuds akin to sledgehammers striking the stone walls of the Netherworld. Every single beat of that demonic organ was a blast of infernal fire scorching his meridians, tearing through every cell of his spinal marrow. The 1,000-year immortal curse laid upon Sanji was no blessing, but an unending cauldron of torment. He could never die. Every shredded fiber of flesh automatically knitted itself shut with slimy black threads. Yet the gut-wrenching agony multiplied 10,000-fold. His two-toned hair of gold and black was matted with dried blood and cold sweat. His blood-red eyes with vertical serpentine pupils glaring into the pitch-black void. In the extreme delirium of his boundless fury, Sanji raked his razor-sharp black talons across his own chest, desperately trying to rip the vile heart from his ribcage, but in vain. It had rooted itself deep into his very soul. Within the hazy consciousness of the fallen soul, a faint ember of memory flickered, to break this demonic curse. The bearer could not rely on dark sorcery to force it, but had to transmute the fundamental essence of the power from darkness to righteousness. Throughout the ages, that supreme power had been corrupted by blind vengeance and sadistic brutality. But how could a creature who had plunged his hands into oceans of blood, who had flayed and butchered his own kin like Sanji, ever hope to reclaim his lost benevolent self? Crack, crack. A dull explosion echoed from the empty void. The space at the bottom of the chasm was abruptly sundered by a violent, deep purple spatial rift surging with lethal lightning. Out from the dimensional tear stepped Ezreal. He was no longer the cautious herald of the past. His severed arm had been replaced by a colossal shard of primordial spatial magicite, radiating a sharp aura of death capable of severing living souls. Ezreal's violet eyes flared with an intensely wicked, sadistic gleam as he looked down at Sanji writhing upon the ground. Did you truly believe you killed Lord Robi? Exquisite puppet? You are nothing more than a pitiful pawn manipulated from the very beginning to the bitter end. Sanji unleashed a guttural, androgynous demonic hiss, preparing to lunge at Ezreal, when a world-shattering pressure of absolute dark authority flooded through the rift, pinning him face down onto the freezing stone. From the void of shadows emerged a woman of lethal, breathtaking elegance, her heels treading upon perpetual black flames. She was Ryuusei, the queen of boundless forbidden arts, the progenitor of all archaic curses, and the supreme sovereign orchestrating the rise of the NIC alliance. Walking behind her, his hollow chest cavity held together by thousands of glowing magical centipedes, was Robi himself. He was alive, his eyes burning with incandescent vengeance locked directly onto the one who had ripped out his heart. The eerie, melodic laughter of Queen Ryuusei resonated throughout the abyss of Veral, piercing Sanji's eardrums like 10,000 frozen needles. She stepped forward, her ancient robes embroidered with archaic NIC sigils sweeping across the pool of black blood. Her gaze upon Sanji was not that of one assessing a rival, but that of a master observing an exquisite toy crafted by her own hands upon the chessboard of destiny. With a subtle flick of her wrist, an invisible wave of dark sorcery hoisted Sanji's muscular yet scarred physique into midair, suffocating him in sheer agony. Pitiful immortal, Ryuusei whispered, her voice sweet as liquid venom. Did you ever wonder why a gentle physician like you was framed by the entirety of Oakhaven? Did you ever question why your dearest friend died with a light magic rune carved into his chest? Sanji glared with bloodshot eyes, dark veins bulging across his handsome, androgynous visage. Silence. It was the vile, envious villagers who butchered my parents. Robi took a heavy step forward, his hollow chest cavity billowing dense black smoke. He let out a low, bestial sneer. Those foolish mortals were merely puppets on our strings. The one who personally shredded your friend, The one who carved the holy rune upon his chest and placed the villagers under a hypnotic curse to condemn you, was none other than myself and Ezreal, by the decree of Queen Ryuusei. Ezreal glided closer, his glowing violet magicite arm tilting Sanji's chin upward with a sickening grin. Dear Sanji, I was born in that very village of Oakhaven. I harbored deep, venomous jealousy toward your beauty and pure magic for years. Watching you butcher innocent souls with your own claws. Watching you kneel to beg for NIC's power and mutate into a bloodthirsty, androgynous abomination. That was the greatest masterpiece I ever orchestrated. Every single word struck Sanji's consciousness like a shattering sledgehammer. The night of the blood moon flooded back into his mind, his parents weeping and begging him to live. Their loving gazes before their heads were severed. The fresh crimson blood of his childhood companion. It was never the petty malice of ordinary farmers, but a demonic conspiracy orchestrated by NIC to forge him into an undying war engine. He had slaughtered his own neighbors, betrayed his parents' sacred sacrifice, and transformed himself into a monster serving the very murderers of his family. Boom! A cataclysmic explosion ruptured deep within Sanji's soul. Ultimate, unbridled fury shattered every psychological tether. The archdemon heart inside his chest pounded at a frenzied frequency. Dark mana condensing into colossal pillars of black flame that tore into the heavens. Sanji unleashed an ear-splitting, throat-rending roar, shattering Ryuusei's dark hold, his razor-sharp talons cleaving forward with apocalyptic force straight toward Robi's chest. Vile demons, I shall shred your souls into 10,000 pieces. A savage clash detonated within the chasm, yet Robi, now augmented by Ryuusei's ancient forbidden arts, deflected the strike with a demonic blow that slammed Sanji into the stone cliffs. Ryuusei smiled coldly, opening a massive spatial gateway to summon legions of underworld fiends. The broken toy dares to bare its fangs. Let us depart. Our true objective is the total annihilation of the Holy Vatican. They vanished into the spatial portal, leaving Sanji collapsed alone amidst the smoking rubble. His soul torn between agonizing repentance and the roaring flames of absolute retribution. At the very heart of the Vatican Imperial City, the atmosphere was stripped of its ancient majesty and solemn serenity, smothered instead by a suffocating gloom and desolation. Grand Commander Ebert sat upon a cold marble throne inside the fractured Grand Basilica. His once glorious golden divine armor was now reduced to fractured metal plates. His right arm, permanently crippled, hung limp at his side, while the meridians throughout his body were so ravaged by Ezreal's spatial lightning that he could not manifest a single untainted wave of holy light. Beside him, Ember huddled with frail, matted silver hair, her emerald eyes once brimming with sacred hope now hollowed by brutal psychological trauma and the dark NIC scars that never ceased weeping blood. Just as the holy city stood upon the brink of total collapse, with its grand cathedrals reduced to smoldering ruins and its military reserves utterly exhausted, the resonant blare of a sacred war horn echoed from the northern gates. Through the pale morning mist, an elite legion of holy paladins emerged, led by Alexandra, Ebert's cousin and the revered war maiden of the Vatican's northern sanctuaries. Alexandra was clad in radiant silver plate armor etched with blazing phoenix motifs, wielding an 8-foot holy light lance wreathed in sacred purifying flames. She possessed a striking, fierce beauty, with crimson hair like a blazing sunset and eyes of unyielding resolve. Beholding her great cousin crippled in the Vatican Basilica draped in mourning, Alexandra rushed forward, dropping to one knee before Ebert, her voice trembling with emotion yet burning with fierce determination. Brother Ebert, I have brought the entirety of the Northern Holy Legion to reinforce the capital. Even if our foes crawl from the deepest abyss of hell, I swear upon this lance to defend the final bloodline of the Holy Vatican. Ebert struggled to raise his head, a bitter smile touching his lips. Alexandra, the situation is far graver than you realize. Vlad Dracula was forced to seal his soul into a 1,000-year slumber beneath the crypts to mend his spiritual fissures. I am crippled, but our enemy is not merely an army of ghouls. The true phantom orchestrating NIC is ascending. No sooner had Ebert's warning spoken than the sky above the Holy Vatican violently mutated into a sickening shade of coagulated blood. The space directly above the Grand Clock Tower fractured violently, unleashing tens of thousands of violet-black lightning bolts that tore through the clouds. Out from the void rift stepped Ezreal with his massive magicite arm. His shrill, mocking laughter booming down like thunder. "Prepare for your extinction, Vatican vermin. The apocalyptic host of Queen Ryuusei and Lord Robi has arrived to grind your holy sanctuary into dust." The catastrophic assault unfolded with a level of brutality unprecedented in the annals of magical history. Thousands of violet spatial portals ruptured across the sky of the Vatican Imperial City simultaneously, disgorging endless hordes of grotesque, mutated underworld fiends. They threw themselves against the final defensive barriers, transforming pristine white marble squares into reeking cauldrons of gore. Perched atop the highest tower, Ezreal raised his magicite arm, unleashing void disintegration beams that obliterated the cathedrals and leveled every arcane defense spire to the ground. Alexandra let out a fierce battle cry, whirling her holy light lance as she tore into the demonic host. Her phoenix flames incinerating hundreds of fiends in the blink of an eye. Yet the endless, crawling swarm of NIC seemed boundless. "Brother Ebert, take Ember and fall back into the subterranean sanctuary. I will hold the rear," Alexandra shouted as she impaled a colossal shadow beast. Ebert bit his lip until blood dripped onto his chin, using his single functional arm to pull Ember deep into the ancient sanctum resting beneath the colossal statue of Justice, a titanic marble monument erected during the founding era of the Vatican. But the moment their boots touched the threshold of the crypt, an overwhelming, seismic surge of sacred magic detonated from within the monument, rattling the very foundations of the earth. The millennium-old statue of Justice began fracturing, golden divine beams bursting from the fissures and bathing Ebert's battered frame in radiant warmth. In that singular breath, the thousand-year mental seal locked within Ebert's consciousness shattered completely. The blood-drenched memories of his childhood, long suppressed by trauma, resurfaced with terrifying clarity. Centuries ago, when Ebert was merely a fragile child, the Holy Vatican had suffered a catastrophic invasion by the supreme sorceress of darkness. That demonic sovereign, Queen Ryuusei herself, had personally crushed his father's heart before his very eyes. With his dying breath, Ebert's father had incinerated his own soul, pouring his boundless divine essence into the statue of Justice to forge an impregnable barrier that preserved young Ebert's life before turning into ash. "Father." Tears mingled with blood down Ebert's face. He realized with absolute certainty that the infinite wellspring of magic sleeping within the statue was the ultimate legacy and lifeblood left behind by his father, awaiting the day his son would awaken to purge the immortal nemesis Ryuusei. Meanwhile, in the skies above, reality collapsed entirely. The shadow chariot of Queen Ryuusei and Lord Robi officially descended upon the city, carrying a suffocating tide of death, poised to raise the basilica and seize the legacy of Justice. Deep beneath the freezing subterranean depths of the Vatican Imperial City, where the thousand-year-old ancestral catacombs rested, the eternal silence was violently shattered by seismic magical tremors crashing down from the surface. The ancient marble sarcophagi fractured, dust and rubble raining down as the suffocating deathly miasma of the NIC Alliance, heavy with sulfur, seeped through the decaying ancestral wards. In the center of the forbidden burial chamber, resting within a blood jade coffin radiating a somber crimson luminescence, Vlad Dracula lay motionless in his thousand-year restorative slumber. The spiritual fissures and shattered meridians inflicted by the Cruor dark arts during his previous mortal duel against Sanji were far from fully healed. The vampire lord's aristocratic frame was still marred by deep, ash-gray magical scars. Yet, as the cataclysmic presence of Queen Ryuusei and the boundless savagery of Robi choked the skies above the Vatican, the ancient blood of the just archdemon coursing through Dracula's veins began boiling violently. The heart-wrenching screams of countless slaughter victims on the surface, harmonized with the catastrophic detonations of spatial lightning, pierced straight into the immortal lord's consciousness. Dracula could not remain in slumber while the sovereign realm of light and his sacred allies stood upon the precipice of absolute extinction. Boom! The massive blood jade sarcophagus lid, weighing several tons, detonated into thousands of razor-sharp shards. Vlad Dracula snapped his eyes open, his pupils burning like twin coals of infernal crimson. Radiating a world-shattering killing intent, he unleashed a sky-rending roar that shattered the subterranean silence, unfurling colossal bat wings wreathed in purified sacred bloodfire. Though every muscle fiber screamed in agony from his unhealed wounds, Dracula marshaled every remaining ounce of his immortal essence, transforming into a crimson streak of light that tore skyward toward the surface. At the southern courtyard of the Vatican Basilica, the defenders were pushed to the brink of absolute annihilation. Alexandra, wielding her holy light lance, was nearing total exhaustion after carving through thousands of demonic fiends. Her silver plate armor was shattered in multiple places, fresh crimson streaming down her shoulder. Perched atop a crumbling spire, Ezreal raised his violet magicite arm, condensing a catastrophic void lightning sphere pulsing with absolute disintegration power, aimed directly at the kneeling, defenseless warrior Maiden. Perish, arrogant wench of the north. Your soul shall serve as an appetizer for Lord Robi. The moment the sphere of ruin discharged, tearing through the air, a colossal winged shadow descended like a wrathful meteor from the heavens. Crash. Vlad Dracula swept his blood demon talons forward, shattering Ezreal's void sphere into harmless sparks in midair with a blast of sanctified blood flame, unleashing a devastating shockwave that blasted hundreds of nearby fiends into red mist. Dracula stood towering like an impregnable, blood-drenched bastion before Alexandra, his glowing crimson eyes glaring ruthlessly at Ezreal. Treacherous parasite, you dare wage slaughter upon this holy sanctuary while my breath still draws? Ezreal recoiled half a step, his violet eyes flashing with momentary shock before contorting into a mocking, vicious smirk. Vlad Dracula, you dared to force your awakening while your soul remains fractured? Today, I shall turn these catacombs into the permanent tomb for your pathetic breed of righteous vampires. Thousands of miles away from the Vatican battlefield, upon the scorched, desolate plains of Veral, Sanji knelt alone amidst the smoldering ash and shattered ruins. His entire physical form was undergoing a harrowing metamorphosis and purification unprecedented in the history of magic. The venomous revelations spoken by Ezreal and the brutal truth behind the butcheries of his parents and childhood friend echoed relentlessly in his mind like agonizing alarm bells that ripped his very soul apart. He realized with unbearable clarity that for years, he had surrendered his soul to the foulest demons, degrading himself into a sadistic, androgynous monster who reveling in tormenting the innocent, all under the insidious manipulation of the very butchers who had slaughtered his kin. His boundless hatred was no longer directed toward the world or the light of the Vatican. It converged into a blazing fire of righteous vengeance destined to incinerate the crimes of Robi, Ezreal, and the supreme witch Queen Ryuusei. Within Sanji's chest, the archdemon heart of NIC began convulsing violently. The 1,000-year-old curse punishing the bearer of dark arts struck once more, tearing through every nerve and cell like 10,000 flaying blades. Yet this time, Sanji did not groan or scream in despair. Gritting his teeth until blood stained his lips, he rose tall upon the cracked stone earth. His eyes were no longer clouded with the foul crimson of madness or perverse sadism. They blazed with the pure, unyielding fire of resolute conviction. This power was seized from the hands of the archdemon, but this soul belongs to my parents. To the untainted benevolence of my origin, Sanji roared. He drove his bare hands against his chest, not to end his life, but to channel the entirety of his purifying will, forcibly inverting the arcane flow of the archdemon heart, transmuting evil into righteousness. Boom, boom, boom. A blinding torrent of golden celestial radiance and divine seraphic fire erupted from deep within the demonic core, utterly dispelling the suffocating black miasma and the stench of corrupted gore. The immortal curse of the demon heart was officially shattered and transmuted, when this boundless might was no longer wielded for slaughter or sadistic depravity, but dedicated entirely to upholding justice and safeguarding life. The agonizing spasms instantly ceased. In their place surged an infinite, transcendent wellspring of life force and divine vigor flooding every meridian. Sanji's physical transformation unfolded with breathtaking majesty. The sickly, androgynous, and morbid allure vanished completely. His hair, once half-stained in abyssal black, was purified, returning to a dazzling, silken golden blonde that shimmered like the morning sun in the howling wind. His countenance reclaimed its handsome, chiseled, and supremely masculine nobility, defined by a sharp jawline and deep cerulean eyes burning with the steely resolve of celestial justice. His physique solidified into an intensely muscular, ripped six-pack athletic form, sculpted like ancient marble statues of classical European war gods. The defiled brands of the NIC glyphs upon his skin were incinerated by divine flames, replaced by sacred celestial runes glowing with radiant gold. Sanji was no longer a depraved, bloodthirsty fiend of the NIC Alliance. He was officially reborn as a supreme commander, a true general of justice commanding the immortal reservoir of an archdemon, guided by the untainted soul of a vengeful war god. Gazing toward the blood-drenched skies of the Vatican, Sanji unfurled colossal wings of pure radiant light behind him, his deep, resonant voice echoing across the mountains. "Father, Mother, watch over me. I shall use this power to crush the demons who destroyed our family, and reclaim justice for all creation." Whoosh! Tearing through the pitch-black heavens, Sanji transformed into a blazing golden meteor, hurtling toward the Vatican battlefield at the speed of light. The heavens above the southern gate plaza of the Holy Vatican shuddered violently beneath apocalyptic magical shockwaves. Vlad Dracula, having forcibly awakened from his 1,000-year slumber, marshaled the entirety of his just archdemon bloodline to strike directly against Ezreal. Yet, the vampire lord's immortal physique was still riddled with unhealed spiritual fissures. Every drop of sanctified blood seeping from the corners of his lips evaporated into plumes of somber crimson smoke in the freezing gale. Ezreal recoiled several paces from the thunderous collision, his violet magicite arm rotating slightly, emitting the chilling shrieks of thousands of souls imprisoned within the crystal. He curled his lips into a barbaric sneer, his violet eyes flaring with absolute contempt. "Dracula, did you truly believe a crippled relic clinging to half his vitality could halt the supreme dominion bestowed upon me by Queen Ryuusei? You are far too ancient and obsolete." Boom! Giving Dracula no breath to recover, Ezreal slammed his boot onto the marble tiles. The primordial spatial magicite encasing his arm mutated violently, expanding into a colossal spatial scythe wreathed in roaring violet-black lightning. With a savage sweep of his arm, he ruptured reality, conjuring a lethal labyrinth of multidimensional rifts that enveloped Dracula and Alexandra like a web of doom. From within the shattered void, hundreds of razor-sharp magical tendrils shot forth with terrifying velocity, piercing through Dracula's sanctified blood barrier. The vampire lord unleashed a mournful demonic roar, his colossal bat wings sweeping across the air as sacred blood flames incinerated the encroaching tendrils. Yet his severe physical exhaustion pushed him inexorably backward. A direct blast of void lightning struck his chest, sending him crashing onto the blood-soaked pavement. Witnessing Dracula's grievous injury, an incandescent fire of wrath ignited within Alexandra's heart, gripping her holy light lance, her body engulfed in the sacred silver phoenix flames of the north. She vaulted skyward like a gale-splitting javelin. Treacherous parasite, atonement for the fallen northern knights is at hand. Alexandra's blazing lance drove straight toward Ezreal's chest with catastrophic force. Yet Ezreal merely scoffed, raising his magicite arm to meet the blow. He crushed Alexandra's phoenix flames effortlessly within his stony palm. The overwhelming kinetic recoil of spatial sorcery tore the sacred lance from her grasp, and Ezreal's magicite claw surged forward like a vice of doom, clamping around Alexandra's throat and hoisting her slender frame into midair. "A fragile little phoenix with broken wings," Ezreal whispered, his eyes gleaming with sadistic depravity. "Allow me to snap every single bone in your body before the eyes of Dracula and Ebert." Alexandra choked for breath, her hands clawing desperately at Ezreal's razor-sharp crystal arm, while Dracula struggled to his feet from the gore in profound helplessness. The southern gate of the Vatican collapsed entirely, drowned in deathly miasma, heralding an imminent and total extinction. Deep within the forbidden sanctum beneath the statue of justice, celestial golden radiance entirely flooded the subterranean gloom. Ebert knelt before the central stone altar, two streams of bloody tears tracing down his weathered cheeks as memories of the brutal slaughter of his father by Queen Ryuusei resurfaced with relentless intensity. The image of his father incinerating his own soul to seal his boundless divine essence into the stone monument to preserve his young son had become an eternal, unquenchable flame burning within Ebert's soul. Father, the fragile child you once protected has finally understood the true weight of justice and supreme sacrifice. Ebert roared, his voice echoing across the ancient crypt. He extended his remaining functional arm, pressing his palm firmly against the brilliantly pulsating magical core at the heart of the monument. Crash! A divine detonation sundered the subterranean depths. The colossal statue of justice shattered into millions of shimmering golden motes, releasing an ancient ocean of sacred magic imprisoned for over 1,000 years. The boundless legacy of his father surged into Ebert's battered physique like an overwhelming tidal wave of pure celestial energy. A world-shaking miracle of rebirth unfolded. Ebert's permanently crippled right arm was enveloped in threads of pure holy light, shattered bones instantly realigned, and meridians torn apart by Ezreal's spatial lightning were thoroughly cleansed and regenerated. The fractured golden divine armor upon his frame mutated into the supreme celestial plate of holy light, radiating a brilliant aura akin to a descended sun. The broken sword within his grasp absorbed infinite golden radiance, reforged into the 6-foot God King blade of sacred justice, its edge wreathed in sacred purifying flames capable of severing any darkness crawling from the netherworld. Above ground, just as Ezreal's magicite claw was poised to crush Alexandra's throat, the marble floor of the southern gate plaza ruptured into a colossal chasm. Whoosh! A titanic pillar of golden light, dozens of meters wide, shot straight into the high heavens, instantly vaporizing the blood clouds and deathly miasma blanketing the sky. Out from the celestial pillar stepped Grand Commander Ebert, radiating the majestic authority of a true God King of Light. His eyes blazed with divine fire, and each stride he took caused the cracked stone earth to heal, blossoming with radiant ethereal flora. Beholding Alexandra suffocating and Vlad Dracula collapsed in his own blood, Ebert's gaze flashed with bone-chilling wrath. He delivered a swift, effortless sweep of the God King blade of sacred justice. Slash! A golden sword beam, thin as a strand of silk yet traveling beyond the boundaries of space, swept across the battlefield. Ezreal's violet magicite arm, the limb he claimed to be impenetrable, was cleanly severed at the elbow, crashing heavily onto the stone and incinerating into ash. Ezreal let out a blood-curdling shriek, clutching his smoking stump as he recoiled dozens of paces, his violet eyes wide with paralyzing horror. Impossible. This power. How could the primordial magic of the ancient God King be reborn within a crippled wretch like you? Ebert caught Alexandra's limp frame, gently placing her into Dracula's protective embrace, before turning to face the demonic host of NIC, his voice thundering with absolute dominion. The blood debt of my father's murder, and the sanctuary of the holy city today. I shall use this consecrated blade to make every single one of you pay 10,000-fold. The sky above the entire domain of the Vatican had transformed into the most horrifying apocalyptic portrait in mortal history. Not a single crevice remained for natural light to pierce through. The entirety of reality was smothered in a dense, suffocating shade of coagulated blood and pitch-black clouds boiling with deathly miasma. High in the zenith of the heavens, Queen Ryuusei's colossal chariot of bone hovered amidst tens of thousands of black lightning strikes. She sat upon an ancient throne crafted from the skulls of fallen holy paladins, her abyssal eyes gleaming with lethal violet radiance, casting a haughty, predatory smirk down upon the burning city. Beside her, Demon Overlord Robi stood towering like a mobile mountain of obsidian doom, his hollow chest cavity held together by thousands of glowing archaic centipedes imbued with Ryuusei's dark arts, pulsed with rhythmic shockwaves of malice, commanding millions of grotesque monstrosities crawling from the deepest pits of hell. The demonic host of NIC flooded every alley and courtyard of the Vatican. Titanic horned brutes pulverized the ancient bastions. Swarms of shadow bats blotted out the crimson sky to shred any living entity in their path, and legions of undead bearing the NIC brand shrieked in mindless bloodlust. Ezreal, despite having his magicite arm cleanly severed by Ebert, was instantly bolstered by Ryuusei's dark sorcery. Razor-sharp metallic void tendrils erupted from his stump, wreathed in toxic violet flames. Hovering beside the Queen's bone chariot, he shrieked in a manic tone to incite the oncoming horde. Sons of the underworld, grind this sacred sanctuary to absolute dust. Transform the Holy Vatican into a grand slaughterhouse for Queen Ryuusei and Lord Robi. At the central plaza, the surviving remnants of the Vatican rallied around the pulverized base of the Statue of Justice. Ember, though bearing severe physical and psychological scars from her prolonged torment within Tartarus, stood tall as the premier saintess of the realm, channeling her untainted magical reserves alongside the surviving priestesses and paladins. She manifested a colossal celestial barrier to evacuate thousands of defenseless citizens deep into fortified subterranean vaults. Blood mingled with sweat upon Ember's delicate face as she gritted her teeth to sustain the ward, her emerald eyes burning with unyielding faith in her brother Ebert. Ebert, clad in the supreme celestial plate of holy light and wielding the God-King blade of sacred justice, stood resolute at the absolute vanguard. Flanking him was Vlad Dracula with colossal bat wings wreathed in sacred blood flames, and Alexandra brandishing her holy light lance reignited by her fierce phoenix life force. The three champions of the light stood shoulder to shoulder, forming an impregnable bastion against the endless, crawling tide of NIC. Robi hurled himself down from the skies, striking the earth with a cataclysmic impact that collapsed entire rows of ancient marble monuments. Swinging his colossal dark warhammer billowing dense black fumes, he bellowed like rolling thunder. Ebert, Dracula, not a single soul among you shall leave this wasteland alive today. The apocalyptic war of godlike proportions officially detonated, shaking the very tectonic foundations of the magical world. Just as Robi's demonic horde and Ezreal's toxic violet flames were poised to overwhelm the defensive line held by Ebert, Dracula, and Alexandra, an extraordinary phenomenon ruptured across the western horizon. The dense wall of pitch-black clouds was violently sundered by a blazing streak of golden luminescence, so untainted and brilliant that it vaporized all deathly miasma in its wake. The sound of an entity traveling far beyond supersonic speed resonated like the roar of an ancient dragon of light. At the epicenter of that celestial streak, a magnificent silhouette plummeted from the heavens like a divine meteor, crashing directly into the heart of the NIC battle formation. Crash, boom, crash. The apocalyptic impact unleashed a radial tempest of golden energy spanning thousands of meters. Tens of thousands of towering fiends and undead ghouls were instantly incinerated into fine ash by the sacred shockwave. The earth fractured into deep fissures glowing with untainted purifying radiance. As the smoke cleared, an imposing, godlike figure stood tall at the center of the colossal crater. It was Sanji, yet he was no longer the sickly, androgynous tormentor or the fallen wretch writhing beneath a sadistic curse. Sanji stood revealed as a supreme commander, a true general of sacred justice. His physique was towering and intensely muscular, boasting sculpted, rock-hard six-pack athletic definition that radiated the masculine power and majesty of ancient European war gods. His silken golden blonde hair billowed proudly beneath the blood moon, his deep cerulean eyes burning with an unquenchable fire of righteous vengeance. Colossal wings of pure celestial light stretched behind his back, every feather blazing with the purified essence of an archdemon heart transmuted into justice. Sanji's arrival struck the entire battlefield with absolute shock. Dracula's ruby eyes widened, overwhelmed with profound emotion at seeing his dearest friend reclaim his noble spirit and true majesty. Ebert and Alexandra tightened their grips on their weapons, sensing the pure aura of celestial justice and peerless might radiating from the arrived warrior. Sanji did not look back at Ebert or Dracula. He locked his blazing blue eyes straight onto Ryuusei's bone chariot above, before glaring ruthlessly at the stunned Robi before him. Robi, Ryuusei, Ezreal, you used petty envy and forbidden arts to slaughter my family and forge me into your butcher. Today, Sanji returns from the abyss not to serve your darkness, but to personally shred every single one of you with my bare hands. Robi gnashed his teeth, infernal flames billowing furiously from his hollow sockets. Treacherous insect, even if you transmuted that power, you remain nothing more than a thief who stole my heart. Let us see how a single warrior stands against the entirety of the NIC alliance. Boom. Robi swung his colossal dark warhammer straight toward Sanji, while Sanji, completely unflinching, clenched his armored fist wreathed in pure golden seraphic flames, unleashing a world-shattering punch to clash head-on against the Netherworld Overlord. Amidst the cataclysmic tremors rattling the Holy Vatican city, the apocalyptic war officially entered its most brutal phase. Carrying the devastating scale of an ultimate dark fantasy Avengers clash, Sanji's breathtaking arrival in his Supreme Commander form reignited the blazing fire of hope for the entire forces of light. While distinctly carving out the mortal duels between the 4 heroic champions and the 3 supreme masterminds of the NIC Alliance, Sanji did not hesitate for a single breath. His deep cerulean eyes blazed with righteous fury, his intensely muscular frame detonating with the boundless might of an undying war god. Delivering a holy light strike that shattered the air, he batted Robi's dark warhammer aside and locked the Netherworld Overlord into a brutal grapple, dragging him toward an isolated perimeter to settle the blood debt that had butchered his parents and childhood companion. Across the storm-torn sky, Queen Ryuusei of the Boundless Forbidden Arts descended from her colossal bone chariot. Her violet-black mantle billowed amidst a tempest of dark lightning, her eyes radiating a lethal sorcery capable of freezing the souls of living mortals. Beholding the immortal nemesis who had personally crushed his father's heart centuries ago, Grand Commander Ebert's chest heaved in incandescent wrath. The God-King blade of sacred justice within his grasp hummed with violent intensity, emitting blinding golden radiance. "Alexandra," Ebert roared, his commanding voice rolling across the warzone. "That vile sorceress slaughtered my father and shattered our youth. Join me in using our ancestral flames of justice to sever her wicked head." "Understood, Brother Ebert," Alexandra shouted, her holy light lance igniting with sacred silver phoenix flames that illuminated the blackened heavens. The Northern War Maiden and the God King of Light vaulted simultaneously into the sky, forging twin divine spears of light to strike directly at Queen Ryuusei. Meanwhile, upon the gore-drenched plaza below, Vlad Dracula unfurled his colossal bat wings wreathed in purified sacred blood flame. Cutting off Ezreal's retreat, Dracula's ruby eyes locked onto the treacherous pathfinder wielding toxic void tendrils. "Ezreal, you used insidious deception to destroy Sanji and butcher countless innocent lives. This blood debt shall be settled with the claws of the just vampire lord." Ezreal let out a shrill, manic cackle, the metallic void tendrils on his severed stump extending outward, hissing with dense violet fumes. "Let us see how a crippled, ancient bat withstands the supreme spatial sorcery of my new dawn." 4 mortal battlefronts were forged across the scorched earth. Demonic roars, war cries of godlike champions, and the earth-shattering clashes of divine steel inaugurated the most tragic and legendary epic in magical history. The mortal duel between Vlad Dracula and Ezreal detonated with catastrophic violence amidst the ruins of the southern bell tower. Ezreal was no longer reliant on raw crystals, augmented by Ryuusei's archaic sorcery. His severed stump was fused seamlessly with primordial spatial shards. He teleported across dimensions with blinding speed, leaving trails of toxic violet afterimages lingering in the stagnant air. Slash, slash. Razor-sharp metallic tendrils shot from the fractured void, carrying absolute disintegration lightning that sliced through Dracula's sanctified blood barrier. Fresh crimson from the vampire lord sprayed across the marble ground. Yet, despite his body aching relentlessly from unhealed wounds after his 1,000-year slumber, Dracula refused to yield a single inch. His ruby eyes burned with the steely resolve of righteous justice. Flapping his colossal bat wings with immense force, he generated a tempest of purified sacred blood flames that shredded Ezreal's encroaching tendrils into ash. Ezreal, power borrowed from the foulest darkness, can never triumph over a soul fighting for righteousness. Dracula roared, unleashing the absolute zenith of his just archdemon bloodline. His aristocratic form ignited with sacred crimson fire, transforming into a streak of blood lightning that plunged into the void. Using his ancient vampire talons, he tore straight through the spatial barriers erected by Ezreal, closing the distance within a fraction of a heartbeat. Crack! A sickening crunch resonated through the air. Dracula's demonic claws seized Ezreal's metallic tendril, shattering the arcane construct into jagged shrapnel with pure muscular force. Ezreal shrieked in agony, yet his violet eyes instantly flared with insidious malice. Taking advantage of the close proximity, Ezreal's remaining stump conjured a miniature spatial singularity directly against Dracula's chest. The catastrophic gravitational pull and violet lightning began crushing the vampire lord's ribcage, forcing him to cough up a large mouthful of lifeblood. Both titanic entities became locked in a breathless, mortal struggle, where the slightest misstep would cast their souls into perpetual oblivion. In the burning skies above the Holy Vatican city, Queen Ryuusei of the Boundless Forbidden Arts hovered within a colossal vortex of violet-black sorcery. Her gaze upon Ebert and Alexandra held absolute contempt, as though watching fragile moths hurling themselves into an eternal inferno. Behind her back, tens of thousands of archaic NIC curse sigils rotated frantically, siphoning the vital essence of reality to forge thousands of razor-sharp deathly arrows. Has the fragile child who once hid behind his father finally learned to wield a blade? Ryuusei's laughter echoed like the venomous hiss of an abyssal serpent centuries ago. I crushed your father's heart with my bare hands, reducing him to ash before your very eyes. Today, I shall reunite both you and your cousin with him beneath the cold earth. Hearing the vile desecration of his father's memory, Ebert's chest burned as if pierced by 1,000 poisoned daggers. The Grand Commander unleashed a sky-rending battle roar, the divine fire radiating from his supreme celestial plate of holy light detonating outward. He swung the God-King blade of sacred justice, unleashing a titanic golden sword arc that sliced through reality straight toward Ryuusei. Vile witch, blood debts shall be paid in blood. Simultaneously, Alexandra surged from the left flank, her holy light lance mutating into a colossal silver phoenix of sacred fire with wings blazing proudly. Cutting off Ryuusei's retreat, the twin apex powers of the holy bloodline converged, forging a divine pincer strike of absolute purifying essence capable of eradicating all darkness from the cosmos. Yet Queen Ryuusei was no ordinary foe. As the mother of all archaic curses and the sovereign entity of the Netherworld, she flicked her sleeve, conjuring the Black Blood Ward, an impenetrable barrier woven from the cursed ichor of 10,000 tormented souls. Crash, boom. Ebert's golden blade beam and Alexandra's phoenix flames slammed violently into the black blood barrier, unleashing a cataclysmic shockwave that leveled every surrounding bell tower to dust. The horrific kinetic recoil of millennium-old forbidden arts blasted both warriors backward across the sky. Ryuusei sneered, her slender fingers weaving arcane mudras to fire thousands of pitch-black curse chains through the void, aimed ruthlessly at the vital meridians of Ebert and Alexandra. The mortal reckoning between ancestral vengeance and archaic forbidden sorcery entered its most breathless, blood-drenched phase. Across another sector of the war zone, upon the pulverized plains of the northern plaza, the apocalyptic clash between Sanji and Demon Overlord Robi had transformed the earth into an ocean of boiling black ichor and golden seraphic flames. Robi bellowed in mindless savagery, swinging his colossal dark warhammer in relentless arcs, each crushing blow carrying the weight of a titanic mountain and suffocating underworld miasma. Relying on the thousands of glowing magical centipedes implanted by Ryuusei into his hollow chest, he regenerated continually, desperately attempting to grind the one who had once ripped out his heart into dust. Yet the Sanji of the present was no longer the vulnerable youth of the past. In his supreme commander form, his diamond-hard, intensely muscular athletic frame moved with the blinding speed of pure light. Every punch, every sweeping kick Sanji unleashed detonated with sacred celestial energy, harmonized with the undying wellspring of an archdemon heart transmuted entirely into untainted justice. Boom, boom, boom. Weaving effortlessly beneath Robi's descending hammer, Sanji delivered a holy fire-wreathed strike directly into the Demon Lord's face. The catastrophic impact snapped Robi's jagged demon horn, sending the titanic fiend tumbling across the shattered pavement, giving his foe no room to recover. Sanji's wings of light beat violently as he closed the distance like lightning. Seizing Robi's massive arms with his glowing talons, Sanji unleashed immense muscular power to snap his elbow joints backward. Crack. The sickening crunch resonated alongside Robi's sky-rending roar of agony, pinning Robi to the ground beneath his armored boot. Sanji's deep cerulean eyes blazed with pure, unyielding fury as the memories of his parents' brutal execution flashed before him. Robi, you used cowardly deception to slaughter my parents. You warped me into a monster to feed your filthy ambitions. Today, this blood debt is reclaimed with your miserable life. Robi glared with smoke-billowing sockets, snarling through a mouth filled with black gore. You cannot kill me. Queen Ryuusei has granted me eternal life. There is no eternity for foul demons. Sanji roared, channeling the entirety of his righteous magic into his right fist. Golden seraphic flames incinerated the thousands of centipedes squirming inside Robi's chest. Sanji drove his radiant hand straight into Robi's chest cavity, crushing the final blackened magical core to absolute dust. Crash! Robi let out a final, horrifying shriek as his colossal frame detonated into brilliant golden flames. Disintegrating completely into nothingness, Sanji stood tall amidst the blazing inferno. Raising his tear-streaked face toward the heavens, he had finally avenged his parents and childhood friend with his own hands. Following Robi's total obliteration by Sanji, the world-shaking golden detonation echoed straight into the consciousness of Ezreal and Vlad Dracula amidst the ruins of the shattered bell tower. Ezreal, who was currently employing his miniature spatial singularity to crush Dracula's ribcage, froze in paralyzing disbelief. He could not fathom that the titanic overlord of the NIC Alliance could be obliterated so swiftly beneath Sanji's hands. That fractional hesitation from Ezreal was the singular, decisive opening Vlad Dracula had awaited for 1,000 years. Ignoring the agonizing torment tearing through his flesh and bones from the spatial lightning, Dracula unleashed a guttural roar carrying the sovereign majesty of the supreme bloodline. The entirety of the sacred blood in his veins boiled furiously, igniting into the just archdemon flame, deep crimson as an apocalyptic twilight. Rather than struggling against the gravitational rift, he rode the immense pulling force to slam his frame directly against Ezreal, driving his razor-sharp demonic talons deep into the traitorous fiend's shoulders. Rip! Ezreal's violet pupils dilated, his jaw slumping open as fresh gore erupted from his lips. Dracula, you are insane. You dare incinerate your own life force for a mutual annihilation? For the sanctuary of this mortal realm, to redeem the grievous sins of the past, what is a single immortal life worth? Dracula declared, his voice deep, resolute, and profoundly tragic. Dracula's colossal bat wings of sacred flame folded shut, binding Ezreal's frame tightly like a blazing crimson cocoon, channeling the entirety of his 1,000-year spiritual essence into his right claw. He drove his talons straight through the primordial spatial magicite embedded in Ezreal's chest, the unholy reservoir of dark mana bestowed by Ryuusei. Crack, boom. The spatial magicite detonated violently into millions of jagged, violet-black shards. The destabilized spatial energy backfired catastrophically through Ezreal's anatomy, shredding his flesh and shattering his metallic void tendrils into dust. Ezreal shrieked in unendurable agony before being thoroughly incinerated by Dracula's sacred blood flames, extinguishing the treacherous architect of tragedy forever. The massive kinetic explosion sent Vlad Dracula hurtling into freefall from the summit of the 100-meter spire down to the earth below. The vampire lord crashed heavily into the pulverized rubble, his frame covered in grievous lacerations, bat wings shattered, and the sacred blood flame flickering on the verge of extinction. He lay motionless amidst the pool of gore, breath shallow and faint, yet a serene smile touched his lips as he saw Sanji hurtling toward him through the smoke. Sanji descended like a streak of light from the heavens, gently catching the battered, blood-drenched frame of Vlad Dracula, beholding his cherished friend of a millennium, who had sacrificed nearly his entire immortal essence for the greater good. Tears traced down Sanji's cheeks. He instantly placed his glowing golden palm over Dracula's shattered ribcage, channeling his innate pure restorative arts combined with the boundless vigor of the transmuted archdemon heart to mend the spiritual fissures and staunch the bleeding. Dracula, you have fought magnificently. Rest now. Leave the rest to me and Ebert's kin. Sanji choked through a whisper. Dracula gave a faint nod, a serene smile touching his lips before he succumbed to a deep, peaceful healing slumber. Meanwhile, in the high skies above the Vatican, The catastrophic clash between Ebert, Alexandra, and Queen Ryuusei had entered its most lethal, decisive phase. Sensing the complete demise of both Robi and Ezreal, Ryuusei displayed neither fear nor retreat. Instead, she descended into the boundless, unhinged madness of a primordial forbidden entity. Foolish vermin, did you truly believe slaying my 2 hunting hounds could overthrow the infinite queen? Ryuusei shrieked, her piercing cry fracturing the very dome of the heavens. Biting through her own fingertips, she inscribed a colossal sigil into the void bearing the primordial NIC glyph. The totality of deathly miasma from millions of fallen cadavers, harmonized with the ancient reservoirs of malice dating back to the founding era of the Vatican, was violently siphoned into her physical frame. Ryuusei's elegant visage mutated catastrophically. She transformed into a titanic archaic shadow worm. Thousands of meters long, her colossal frame armored in obsidian scales oozing lethal venom and covered in hundreds of glowing violet demonic eyes. Every breath exhaled by the shadow worm unleashed a tempest of necrotic acid capable of corroding Ebert's celestial plate and Alexandra's sacred lance into rust. Ebert and Alexandra were continually driven backward, their divine armors fracturing in multiple places, blood streaming down their limbs. Yet they stood unflinching as an unbreakable bulwark to protect Ember's grand evacuation barrier below. Whoosh! A blinding streak of golden radiance tore through the blackened firmament, landing with regal majesty beside Ebert and Alexandra. It was Sanji in his supreme commander form. Moments later, Vlad Dracula, though his frame was wrapped in sacred bandages, forced his immortal will to unfurl his blood wings and ascend beside them. The 4 greatest champions in magical history, Ebert bearing the God King legacy, Alexandra commanding the sacred phoenix flame, Vlad Dracula wielding the just archdemon heart, and Sanji channeling the supreme commander essence, stood united for the first time, forging an invincible alliance to confront the ultimate manifestation of archaic darkness, the primordial worm Ryuusei. The apocalyptic roar of the archaic shadow worm Ryuusei shook the very fabric of space above the Holy Vatican city. Her colossal body, thousands of meters long, coiled amidst the swirling blood clouds, hundreds of glowing violet demonic eyes glaring ruthlessly down upon the 4 champions assembled for battle. Every dragon scale upon Ryuusei's frame served as an ancient curse array, continuously releasing destructive acoustic shockwaves that pulverized the remaining fortified bastions into dust. Crash! From the maw of the shadow worm, a torrent of violet-black necrotic acid flame capable of dissolving all creation erupted straight toward the central plaza, where Ember was channeling her final reserves of Saintess magic to sustain the grand barrier shielding tens of thousands of evacuating citizens. If this necrotic breath touched the earth, every innocent soul below would dissolve into toxic gore within a single heartbeat. Never shall you lay a hand upon my sister or the innocent. Grand Commander Ebert roared with the majestic authority of a God King. Without a fraction of hesitation, he raised the God King blade of sacred justice, his entire form igniting with brilliant celestial fire, hurtling skyward to forge a colossal shield of radiant light that met Ryuusei's necrotic torrent head-on. The horrific heat and corrosive acid gnawed ferociously at Ebert's celestial plate, sending dense white smoke into the air and tearing his flesh into bleeding wounds. Yet his feet remained anchored upon the void like an unyielding mountain. Simultaneously, Alexandra whirled her holy light lance, her form transforming into a streak of sacred silver light slicing through the gloom, thrusting straight into the left eye of the shadow worm to divert its catastrophic focus. The phoenix flames seared through the thick dragon scales, drawing a thunderous shriek of agony from Ryuusei. In mindless fury, she lashed her titanic dragon tail lined with thousands of venomous spikes across the sky, poised to grind Alexandra into ash. Whoosh! A golden silhouette traversed the void at the speed of light. Sanji, in his supreme commander form, arrived in the nick of time, extending his diamond-hard, intensely muscular arms to catch the multi-thousand-ton tail strike barehanded. The catastrophic impact unleashed a tempest of energy that cracked the firmament, gritting his teeth as the transmuted archdemon heart detonated with boundless holy light. Sanji let out a war cry, using his undying strength to heave the titanic tail upward and cast the beast back into the sky. rescuing Alexandra in the blink of an eye. Vlad Dracula plunged down from above, his bat wings of sacred flame carving two colossal blood lightning blades through the air, severing dozens of venomous spikes along the worm's spine. The four champions moved in flawless harmony, weaving a divine battle formation that resolutely suppressed every devastating assault launched by the supreme sorceress. Despite being relentlessly pressed by the four champions, the archaic shadow worm Ryuusei rapidly regenerated her severed scales and battle wounds. Fueled by the bottomless forbidden mana of the primordial NIC glyph, raising her titanic head toward the blood-drenched heavens, she unhinged her jaws to condense a colossal sphere of abyssal annihilation named the Boundless Void of Death, the supreme forbidden technique capable of vaporizing the entire magical continent and plunging all creation into eternal extinction. The surrounding space warped violently around the sphere of ruin, dragging all ambient light and atmosphere into its crushing gravitational core. Witnessing the impending doom, the four champions knew they could no longer fight as separate entities. This was the decisive breath to merge their souls, their life force, and their sacred conviction of justice into a single, definitive strike of extinction. Ebert ascended to the central apex, raising the God-King blade of sacred justice high, his voice resounding across the nine heavens. O noble soul of my beloved Father, O sacred ancestors of the Holy Vatican, bear witness to our ultimate justice today. Alexandra vaulted to the left flank, driving the tip of her holy light lance into Ebert's golden sword aura, pouring the entirety of her northern sacred silver phoenix flames into the blade. Vlad Dracula unfurled his batwings of sacred flame on the right flank, releasing the absolute essence of his just archdemon heart, infusing 1,000 years of purified immortal blood into the steel, transmuting the blade into a dazzling rose gold titan radiating absolute demonic purification. And finally, Sanji manifested directly behind Ebert, his intensely muscular athletic frame blazed with an unprecedented, blinding celestial aura, placing his hands, brimming with the boundless, undying mana of the transmuted archdemon heart, firmly against Ebert's back. He poured his infinite essence into the Supreme Commander. Ebert, carry the sacred wishes of my slain parents, carry the peace of 10,000 innocent souls, and cleave this foul demoness to ash. The flawless convergence of the God-King legacy, the sacred phoenix flame, the just archdemon bloodline, and the Supreme Commander essence forged an unprecedented ultimate array, the God Blade of absolute holy light judgment. A colossal blade of pure celestial radiance, tens of thousands of meters long and bearing the primordial genesis might of the creator gods, materialized across the heavens, its golden brilliance dispelling the blood moon and incinerating Ryuusei's boundless void of death before it could even discharge. The heavens above the Holy Vatican city radiated with a pure, primordial golden brilliance unseen since the dawn of creation, the God Blade of absolute holy light judgment, spanning tens of thousands of meters and forged from the life force, souls, and unyielding conviction of the four greatest champions of magic, unleashed a sacred pressure that utterly suppressed the deathly miasma and toxic violet flames of the NIC Alliance. The archaic shadow worm Ryuusei released an ear-splitting shriek, hundreds of demonic eyes across her titanic frame dilating in absolute horror. For the first time in millennia of reigning supreme over archaic forbidden arts and harvesting endless torment, the sovereign entity of darkness tasted the freezing breath of absolute oblivion. Thrashing frantically across the firmament, tens of thousands of obsidian scales detonated simultaneously, weaving a dense barrier of cursed ichor in a frantic bid for survival. Perish, eternal demoness of the abyss! Grand Commander Ebert roared, his commanding voice harmonized with the war cries of Sanji, Dracula, and Alexandra to forge a single, divine verdict that shook the foundations of reality. Crash! Ebert brought the colossal blade of pure celestial radiance crashing straight down upon the shadow worm's crest. The divine strike cleaved through reality itself, severing the blood-drenched night sky in two. Ryuusei's barrier of dark ichor shattered like brittle glass before the unyielding essence of absolute purification. The golden blade carved smoothly through the dragon's skull, slicing down the entirety of her multi-thousand-meter anatomy and driving straight through the primordial NIC glyph embedded within her heart. Crack, boom, boom. A world-shattering detonation of sacred light erupted across the heavens. The colossal frame of the shadow worm exploded into millions of dazzling celestial embers. Radiant golden flames incinerating every forbidden cell and every lingering trace of Ryuusei's malice into eternal dust. The despairing shrieks of the Supreme Witch dissolved into the boundless void, permanently terminating the tyrannical dark dominion of the NIC alliance that had plagued the realms for centuries. The blood-red firmament evaporated instantly, parting to welcome the first warm, golden rays of a pristine mortal dawn, bathing the Vatican in celestial warmth after an age of suffocating as the pristine morning rays illuminated every corner of the Holy Vatican city. The most devastating war in the annals of magical history officially drew to its final close. Though the once majestic basilicas and marble plazas were reduced to smoldering stone ruins, the atmosphere was thoroughly purged of necrotic miasma and dark malice, restored to a sacred and untainted tranquility. Ember led the surviving thousands out from the subterranean vaults, witnessing the radiant morning sun and the imposing silhouettes of the four champions standing tall atop the ruined heights. The multitude of citizens and paladins dropped to their knees, weeping tears of overwhelming joy and boundless reverence. Ember rushed into the embrace of her brother Ebert, burying her face against his chest. The dark scars upon her skin seemed gently soothed by the descending celestial dawn. Ebert, clad in his radiant plate and holding the blade that had finally reclaimed retribution for his fallen father, smiled warmly as he held his sister. Beside him, Alexandra drove her holy light lance firmly into the earth, removing her silver war helm to let her crimson hair dance in the morning gale, her eyes glowing with the fierce pride of a warrior maiden who had defended her kin and the holy realm to the end. Vlad Dracula, though exhausted from his desperate strikes, had transcended the threshold of death thanks to his sanctified bloodline and Sanji's restorative magic. Retracting his colossal bat wings, the vampire lord walked to Sanji's side, resting a hand upon his friend's sculpted shoulder. Two gazes, one of somber ruby, one of resolute cerulean, locked in quiet understanding, their bond of brotherhood having transcended species, bloodshed, and centuries of agony. Sanji stood resolute beneath the ascending dawn. His supreme commander form radiated a breathtaking, godlike masculine majesty. The transmuted archdemon heart within his muscular chest now beat in serene, harmonious rhythms, serving purely as an untainted reservoir of sacred justice. The thousand-year curse of physical torment was broken forever. The souls of his slain parents and childhood companion could finally rest in peace. Raising his head, Sanji unfurled his golden seraphic wings, ascending to the highest pinnacle of the ruined Vatican, his resonant voice carrying across the continent. The long night of deceit and darkness has ended. From these smoldering ashes, we shall forge a realm of compassion, righteousness, and eternal light. The dark, tragic, and epic saga concluded beneath the brilliant dawn of rebirth. The four heroic champions, Sanji, Dracula, Ebert, and Alexandra, inscribed their names into the eternal legends of the magical cosmos, standing as immortal monuments of absolute justice for all eternity.